Is it Lord Bush or the Islands? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Been forced to move this morning to share a few thoughts with you from our gospel reading. Sort of reading through the gospel, wondering what it is I can pick out that was noticeable and memorable. I thought, what could we talk about out this morning's gospel reading? John the Baptist publicly identifies Jesus as the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. That's pretty good. He tells everybody that he's seen the Spirit descend upon him and rest upon him, a sign that Jesus is the Son of God. The next day, John again points Jesus out to two of his own disciples, and they leave John and start to follow Jesus instead. And when Jesus noticed them, he invites them with the words, "Come and see," and they spend the day with him. And one of these disciples is Andrew, and he immediately goes to find his brother Simon and tells him that we found the Messiah. And Andrew brings Simon to Jesus and looks at him and declares a new identity upon Simon. He looks at Simon and he says, "Simon, you are son of John. You shall be called Peter." So it's quite a bit, because I know some Simons. It's a big one. I know some Peters as well. I know at least two Peters. At least two Peters. I thought there's got to be something in that. Simon turns into a Peter. And it gives me the opportunity to talk about Simon, and obviously the biblical one, of course. And I would like to say that during the construction of this sermon, no Simons or Peters were harmed mentally or physically. And the original ones are actually dead, or obviously they couldn't go with the Lord in glory. And any reference to any Simons or Peters you may actually know is purely coincidental. But it does give me carver on a plate, doesn't it? But there's a very serious spiritual point to all of this. To understand what's happening, we need to step back into the world where names weren't just labels, but they were stories. Today we choose names because they sound nice. Because we once met a lovely child called Oliver or Tarquin or whatever you want to call your kids these days. We have some really weird names, don't we? We don't find many Bruces or Brians or Georges anymore. But anyway, I have a nephew, Nick, who he's a bit posh. He's defective. He works at GCHQ, so he can't tell me what he does, otherwise he'll have to kill me. He's got posh on us. So my great nephew is called Rupert. And I said, for goodness sake, Nick, never move back to Shirebrook. That poor kid will get slaughtered. You've got to leave him down there. He can never move back. But in the ancient world, names would carry meanings, destiny, character, and sometimes probably maybe related to parental visual thinking. And there's some pretty weird ones. There's many names in the Bible that make you say, really? I mean, we have Ichabod, for instance. I'll give you a few names for Ichabod, which means the glory has departed. Just imagine being sort of christened Ichabod. The child Ichabod was born on the day that the ark was captured. His father died. His mother was in despair, so she named him after the national tragedy. So imagine introducing yourself at a party with that name, But we have Esau, which means hairy. So he's pretty straightforward but brutally honest. Imagine Simon being born and go, that's hairy. We'll call him hairy, name finished. Brutally honest. And his twin brother Jacob, who grabbed his heel on the way out, who was called the Jacob, which means a heel grabber, the supplanter, the trickster. Imagine naming your child as the one who's like the sneaky child who's likely to steal your toys. But it was, to be fair, Jacob did actually live up to his name, tricking his brother, deceiving his father, and all the rest of it. I'm sure you know the story. But God eventually renames him Israel. We have, if you want to be really depressed, we have the children of Hosea. Hosea was the prophet who was told to marry a prostitute, and raise children. And this was a symbolic act as to how God felt about Israel, how Israel had prostituted themselves with other gods. And his first child was called Low Ruama, which means not loved. And his second child was called Not My People. So, yeah, you kind of got a feel for them, haven't you? But anyway, there's a few more, but we'll go on. I mean, there's names that sound nice. I mean, my daughter says to me, "Thanks, Dad," and that's because I called my daughter. Well, I didn't, because I just on the manner as I'm told. Yeah, my eldest daughter called Rebecca, which actually means noose. When she discovered this, she said, "Thanks, Dad." I said, "Blame your mother, it's not nothing to do with me. Blame your mother." And for your daughter-in-law, is it Leah? Yeah, Leah.
She was named after Princess Leia in the Star Wars.
Yeah, actually means weary or cow-like. But anyway, yeah. So there is significance in names. I didn't tell him that.
Better man than that.
I'm not telling him. Keep it a secret. It's a nice name, like Rebecca the News. Yeah. But, there is significance in names, and Simon has a meaning. And so I thought, well, first of all, before we talk about his name change, we want to think, what does Simon mean? And across major biblical sources, if we take Simon with its Hebrew roots, it is quite an impressive name, really. It means either he has heard, he's listened, yeah, or even God has heard, yeah. And Simon derived from that name, God has heard, yeah. Another source says Simon is the one who hears. Yeah, if you want to sort of get a counter on that one, you can go to the Greek, and apparently it means a flat-nosed, dog-headed fish with a scary piece. so it depends which one you want to go for, really. But I think we should win the Bible, so we should go with the Hebrew one. Yeah, they were regarded as, in Greek mythology, they were regarded as wizards, envious demons with very fiery eyes and all kinds of destructive powers. But we'll go with the one who God hears and listens. And Simon, bless him, does actually fit the bill. He's listened to Jesus, he goes to see, and he's the disciple most likely to speak first and think later. He is the disciple that's most likely to leap before he looks. Yeah. He is the disciple that's most likely to say the right thing in the wrong way, or the wrong thing with great enthusiasm. Yeah, but he's a wonderfully glorious human being. He's the man who promises undying loyalty and then denies Jesus 3 times before breakfast. Yeah, he's the man who walks on water and then sinks like a stone. Yeah, he's the man who draws the sword at Gethsemane and accidentally starts a small war. And he's the man when Jesus was being transfigured on the Mount of Transfiguration in great glory and all the rest of it. It says, "Shall I put a tent up then?" Yeah, which is obviously it captured the spiritual essence of the moment. Yeah, Simon is not the rock. You know, he's sort of more like a weather vane. He sort of moves around with the wind. Yeah, and Jesus looks at him and really looks at him and says, "You are Simon, son of God. Yeah, but you shall be Simon Peter." He doesn't lose his Simon, he gains a Peter. Yeah, and Peter is the name that Jesus gives him. Peter, or Petros, means rock. Solid, steady, foundational, the kind of person you can build something on, which is a bit mental, really. It's a bit of a ridiculous name for Simon at this stage, because he's not sort of done anything. It's a bit like calling toddler Your Majesty, or the cat obedient, because he's not. Or even myself or Simon, an Olympic athlete. You know, not quite fit, does it? Yeah. But Jesus isn't describing the Simon who is. He's describing who Simon is going to become. And I think that's at the heart of the gospel for us this morning. Jesus sees the future God is shaping in us long before we see it for ourselves. Simon hears. Peter stands firm. Simon reacts. Peter leads. Simon wobbles. Yeah, and Peter witnesses. And the miracle is that Simon doesn't disappear when Peter emerges. The two identities live side by side for years. And the Gospels often call him Simon Peter, as if to remind us that transformation is really instant. Faith is a journey, not a switch. We grow into the names that God gives us. And I suppose I asked the question then, well, why did Jesus bother to change his name? And I thought, well, several reasons could have. I'll pose a few just to think for thought. I would say, firstly, to declare his new identity. Jesus is saying to Simon and to us, yeah, your past does not define your future, God does. Yeah. To speak destiny into being, Jesus names the leader Peter will become the preacher at Pentecost, the shepherd of the early church, the martyr who will not deny Christ again. And I think really by renaming Simon, I think it anchored him. Because every time Simon wobbled, Jesus called him Peter again, as if to say, remember who you are becoming. To show that call in his grace. Peter doesn't earn the name. It's not as if Peter didn't sort of follow Jesus for a couple of years and say, well, you're doing okay. We might make you a Peter. I think you've earned it. He doesn't do that, no, not at all. Jesus sees him on the first day and says, you're a Peter. Yeah. So he doesn't earn the name, he grows into it. And I suppose Simon Peter, in a sense, is like a holy contradiction. It's a combination of the two names, Simon Peter, and it's one of the most comforting scriptures, and it tells us that faith is not a straight line. The distance between who we were and who we are becoming, the tension between the impulsive fisherman and the courageous apostle, it's a reminder that God works with the whole of us, the strong bits, the weak bits, the embarrassing bits, and the bits that we'd rather hide and cover up. Yeah. Simon Peter is the disciple who gets it gloriously right one moment and spectacularly wrong the next. The disciple who declares Jesus as the Messiah and then says, I'm very sorry, Messiah, I'll have to correct you on that one, you've got that one wrong. Jesus says, get thee behind me, Satan. But he's the disciple that sinks into the waves, but he is the only one brave enough to get out of the boat in the first place and have a go. So, he is, in other words, us. Yeah. What does that mean for us today? Yeah. And I think we can confidently say that God sees more in us than we ever see in ourselves. We often define ourselves by our failures, our limitations, and our past. But Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus didn't bring any of that up when he met Simon in the first place. Jesus defines us by our future and his grace and our future in him. So, we're all Simon Peter. We're all works in progress. We're all saints that wobble. Yeah, we rocks with cracks. And that's okay, because Jesus builds with imperfect stones. Calling is not about perfection, I believe, but I think calling is about a direction that we travel in. Jesus doesn't wait for Simon to become Peter before he calls him Peter. He just names him into becoming. You know, transformation takes time. Faith is not instant holiness. It's slow, it's steady, it's shaping, it's falling down and getting up again. It's hearing Jesus say, follow me every day. And we're invited to live into the name that God gives us. God loves us, beloved, forgotten, forgiven, chosen, precious, light bearers, peacemakers, disciples. Our task is to grow into them names step by step. And I was looking for a story, but it's not a great one, but a story to finish with. There's an old rabbinic tale about a man who dies and stands before God. And God doesn't ask him, why weren't you Moses? Or why weren't you Elijah? God just asks him, why weren't you? The person I could make you to be. And Jesus looks at Simon and sees Peter. And Jesus looks at us, looks at you, looks at me, and sees who we are becoming by the grace of God and who we can become by the grace of God. He sees the gifts you haven't discovered yet. He sees the courage that you've not used yet and the faith that you've not grown into yet. He sees the rock beneath the sand. And perhaps the most liberating truth of all of this is that Jesus doesn't just rename us, he stays with us while we grow into that name. So, an ending thought this morning, I would encourage you all to look for your Peter. You've got one there somewhere. And that is disturbing if you know what I called Peter when I was a young child. Over to you, Slavoj.